Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Unrein, principal at Smith Junior High. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the evolution of our teaming over the past 3 years. And for the start of the day, I figured we could go through who we are and whether you're just starting to team, in the middle of teaming. I hope that there's some value when you learn about just the development of our teams and how they continue to evolve. We'll then dive into some deeper on personalized learning and what that looks like at Smith. Specializations and advancement pathways, and then also the impact of teaming and what we're looking to do next. When we first started, I didn't really know much about ASU, but when I read that they were really looking at developing deeper and personalized learning and trying to empower educators and retain educators, I knew this is something that we wanted to team up with, and it's been a valuable partnership. Big shout out to Mary Brown. She's been a huge help in working with us and our teams here at Smith. So who we are. Smith Junior High is a 7th and 8th grade campus. We are over in East Mesa. It's founded in 2001, 2002. We have currently enrolled about 871 students, and we're at 61% free and reduced lunch. And when we look at our teaming model, our vision for teaming is that through agency and voice, our interdisciplinary teams will have autonomy to pool resources, interest, and expertise so that staff, students, and families are supported by strength and need. And this is all guided by our district's promise is that every student in Mesa Public Schools is known by name, served by strength and need, and they graduate ready for college, career, and community. And so our teams really want to use our portrait of a graduate as well as the lens as we look through all the application and teaching and interactions with our students. So timeline, 2019, 2020 was my first year at Smith. And when I got to Smith, I'd known that we had to make some shifts, not just at Smith, but just in education. And so that early that year, I just really wanted to start communicating the why we had to make some shifts and changes. So what I really did is just take stock and communicate that why. And some of those early adopters reached out. So we started having some conversations, and then COVID hit. So at that point in time, it's perfect for us to just go remove all fear of failure, and let's try and dive in with some innovation, specifically inquiry-based learning. Once we had that cohort of early adopters that were ready to take the plunge, we started summer planning, and then we were in the ASU summer workshop, which proved valuable for the team that year. So in 2021, we launched our School of Inquiry, and it was one team. It was a 7th grade team that was comprised of 3 subjects. It was social studies, science, and ELA. And those 3 teachers shared a cohort of 100 students. Then in 21-22, we expanded it to 2 teams, our 7th and 8th grade. We still had 3 subjects, and we still shared a cohort of students, about 100 students per grade level. And what we're looking to do next year as we move into expanding teams for all of 7th grade is expanding it to 4 core content areas. Geographically, there's going to be some changes where you won't have a science class based in a lab every day. And what we wanted to do is really block out some time and give these teams agency so that they can do what's best for students under that umbrella of our portrait of a graduate and our district's promise. One shift that we are making is that a full-time equivalency is really going to be a 0.8, and I'll dive into what that looks like here shortly. So we'll have all of our 7th grade teams with 3 teams total, and then we'll have 1 8th grade team next year. So if you look at the evolution of those teams and distributed expertise over the past 3 years, this is what you would see. So in 2021, we had our ELA teacher, social studies teacher, science teacher, and our Title I coordinator was very instrumental in really developing the collective commitments and facilitating the team's vision and mission. We also had a digital learning facilitator who used to be a science teacher as well. So he brings more than just that digital landscape to the teams. He can also help out when it comes to science and some of the other areas that he's really strong in. And again, in 2021, this was 100 students that we were serving. And then in 21-22, we expanded to 7th and 8th grade. We also had some teachers that looped with their kids as well, which was great because they were able to continue to develop deeper relationships and really get to know kids by strength and serve them by need. So in 21-22, Now 7th and 8th grade, we have our ELA teacher, our science teacher, our social studies teacher, interns and student teachers through ASU. We have pushed into the teams. They have complete flexibility. Their classes we have a homeroom and then periods 2, 3, and 4. And so they had autonomy within that chunk of time with where students would go. They were not governed by bells. It was also very nice that we were able to have an inquiry coach. Julie Waugh joined the team, and she also taught on the 8th grade team as well. So she has that credibility of also teaching and coaching for the school through inquiry. And then as we look to the development of our teams next year, you'll see the slides get a little bit busier. And so next year, as we move forward, it's going to look a little different. So we have social studies, ELA, math, and science. Now our social studies and ELA will be blocked together over 2 hours. Our math and science will be blocked together over 2 hours. We'll still have an instructional coach, and we'll still push our interns and student teachers into the fold. Our Title I coordinator is still going to work with our teams. The teams will be expanded to about 150 students per team. We also have our ELL teacher, because we're going to have those ELL students. We're going to have our individualized instruction students will be spread throughout these teams. Our digital learning facilitator is still going to be on these teams. And then we also have a partnership with Valle del Sol and Youth Rising. And so they'll work with these teams just to be able to provide those tier 2 or tier 3 supports when needed. And I've reached out to the 2 high schools that our school would feed into and asked those principals if there are students that would be willing to come down for service learning hours to work with our students through tutoring. And then that's when you see the distributed expertise even happen on a student level. We also want to look at using some of our honor students that can help tutor and work with these teams based on students' need. So how does this look for a master schedule? There are 3 different schedules that we will be looking at next year. So this would be an example of one for, let's call team A. First hour starts at 9:15 to 9:30. That's a homeroom, 15 minutes. The students would be divided to those different teachers on the team for 15 minutes, setting short-term goals for the week, reviewing those goals and whether they attained them last week. But if we run through a student schedule for the day, if I'm a student, I come in, I go to my homeroom, then second hour, I have an elective class, third hour, I'm going to lunch. And let's just call block A, social studies and ELA. So from 11:04 to 1 o'clock, the social studies teacher and ELA teacher will have approximately 75 students, and they can move those kids around however they need to move them around within that time frame between 11 and 1 o'clock. Those rooms are going to be housed right next to each other. Then those students would rotate into their elective class for 6th hour. And then after elective, they rotate into B block, which would be that math and science block. Now, a teacher could essentially say, okay, I've got my 37 kids here for 7th hour and in math, and then the other 37 are in science, and then we can flop them to the hour mark. They have complete autonomy, and I just need to make sure that our teachers know that I'm the full back for them, remove any barriers, provide what they need, and make sure there's no fear of failure here. Because the big thing that we are doing, if you look at the schedules, it's not 5 classes that a teacher would have. So what we've done is bump the classes up to 37. And what this does is it gives the teams every day 2 planning periods where they can meet, they can really drill down with the MTSS piece. Because that's really tough to ask a kid to come in after school for math tutoring because they don't like math and they know show you anyway. So what can we do within our day to service those kids? And also, what can we do for our staff? Time is a gift for teachers. So I want to make sure that they have a couple hours every day as a team to sit down and make some good decisions and really innovate, not be micromanaged, but have time to innovate. We've got to give them time and space for it. And so our charge, that multi-tiered system of support. So if we've got students that, let's say they were out for some period for maybe it was COVID, or maybe they've struggled and they weren't able to make some work up, that team can pull those students from their elective class. So since the team all has that common period, the elective teachers are on board. I might be able to pull, let's say, Johnny from PE because he's got 4 missing assignments, or he was absent, maybe he needs tutoring, he needs to make something up. We can also address some of the behavioral and social emotional needs of students. We also want to be able to support our staff. And as I said before, the gift of time is huge for teachers. So if we can provide a comprehensive multi-tiered system of support for our students, provide the time and space for our staff to support one another as a team. We also want to ensure that we're improving our community relations. And then the work itself, we're really pushing for authentic interdisciplinary learning for all students. It's an equity issue. And so when we look at, authentic interdisciplinary learning for all students, that's when we get into that deeper and personalized learning. And at Smith, we really want to push inquiry. So in my mind, teaching is a tough gig. If you look at, you've got 30 kids traditionally that come into a room. Those kids have to learn their emotional dispositions. And in junior high, that might change every 15 or 20 minutes. But how can I know what specifically each kid needs within a 58-minute time frame or 56-minute time frame? And there's 30 of them. It's just too vast for one teacher in isolation to do that work. And so if we're able to give kids a little bit of agency, inquiry is really the fastest way for us to differentiate and meet students where they are, and ultimately give us a roadmap to serve our district's promise. And that is to make sure that we know them by name, serve them by strength and need, and make sure they graduate ready for college, career, and community. The content specific classes, you might have some micro lessons that are just specifically math, just specifically science. Then you might have some of those cross-curricular pieces where we're going to get into STEM or more of the humanities with ELA and social studies. And hopefully we can even fuse the art teacher in there as well. The work that we're doing with inquiry really requires a push with literacy. And so there's a big push for kids to read. They shouldn't be on their laptops. Any spare moments we have, we want to get a book in students' hand. Make sure that literacy goes even beyond reading, just being able to communicate, being assessment capable learners, having media literacy to evaluate credible sources. And again, all of this really supports Mesa Public Schools' portrait of a graduate. We want kids to be able to ask good questions, to contribute to the community, to be problem solvers, and develop a lot of those soft skills that work requires. And I've told staff, really, if we focus on Wicker strategies with a premium on inquiry, that could be a pretty easy playbook for us to follow along with. And so we look at diverse learners. In creating the master schedule, we have to accommodate all. And it really starts by placing those singletons in there. You want to make sure if you only have one orchestra or one choir class, a lot of your honors track students, they're going to need that class. And so really setting your singletons in there and then developing all of your classes around that. And this ensures that you don't have all of your SPED students on one team. You want them spread out. We want to make sure we're hitting that LRE. Our ELL services, we want to make sure that those students are spread out among the teams as well. The Gen Ed teacher also provides a lot of, or gets a lot of support here, because our employee involvement committee even this year said, hey, we're struggling a little bit with trying to support some of our ELL students are pre-emergent. And so with the teaming and the time provided for our ELL teacher to go and meet with these teams during those prep hours, that's when we can really talk about specific students' needs and what support or what pieces can that ELL teacher provide those teachers to help that student. And this trickles all the way down. Our case managers for individualized instruction, gifted and talented students. So we really want to make sure that these are not all clustered on certain teams. It's spread out. And that way, we're providing equitable outcomes for all students. Specializations and advancement pathways. The big piece I really see here is that work satisfaction for teachers. Right now, we have a lot of teachers that are leaving the profession, and it's kind of scary when we think about what does future education look like if teachers that are constantly covering other classes on prep hours, if you've got a lot of vacancies. So as a principal, I need to make sure that I have an environment that people want to come and work here at Smith, and it's a destination for teachers. And so these teams are the heart of that. They're able to share celebrations and burdens. You think about the built-in mentorships. I think about a first-year teacher that struggles with calling a parent, for example, and you have that veteran teacher that can coach them up through that phone call. And even since they share the cohort of students, that phone call can be made by a team. We even had an example where we had some baseball students that were getting a little unwieldy. So the team went out and talked to the coach during baseball practice, and it was nipped in the bud. So that shared burden and the shared celebrations is huge when it comes to teachers. Also, it really plays into that distributed expertise. Everyone has that content piece, but in addition to the specific content knowledge, what are other things that you're really good at, whether it's the tech skills, maybe there's another language in there. And we're very cognizant of that skill inventory as we create these teams. The big piece too is that common student expectation. Kids are pretty good at pitting teachers against each other. Hey, this teacher lets me do this. And so having those common expectations when it comes to behavior, academics, for example, are we having kids write their responses in complete sentences versus phrases? The collective commitments that teachers make to one another really provides consistency for staff and students. The other piece for recruitment and retainment that I love is that in having student teachers and interns here, we're able to expose them to this is the teaming, this is the inquiry that we're striving for, cross-curricular connections whenever possible to increase the relevancy for our students. But they're visible interviews. I get to go and see these guys teach and work with kids. Oftentimes I've interviewed people and it just didn't transfer or manifest in the classroom. And so you can see it before going into the interview, you pretty much know what you're getting. And also, that's just another addition to the distributed expertise of the team. So yes, while there's that content knowledge piece, we all have different things that we enjoy, different hobbies, different areas that we work well with, different abilities to connect with different students as that trusted adult. And then also thinking about growing our leadership capacity with team leads. This really is a team. You've got to have some people step up and lead and facilitate. So I've seen a lot of growth in younger teachers. I've seen a lot of growth in just even our Title I specialist, and the work that she's done in getting this off the ground has been phenomenal. So the impact that we're looking at here is that first year, which would have been year 2 on that timeline, is the School of Inquiry enrollment increased by 25% from year 1 to year 2. The improved open enrollment interest for the program was great. I remember when we lost some students for open enrollment, and our registrar was pretty upset about it one day. And I said, you know what, we have to change the narrative. And that's what we've done. So we're starting to see more open enrollment curiosity and tours and people that are wanting to know more about this program. It also provides a natural implementation for multi-tiered systems of support. It's built into the day and it happens organically with these teams. It's clarified the path for our teachers with Mesa Public Schools Portrait of a Graduate, our promise, and we've increased our family involvement. When we have share fairs that are open inquiry, our students have to share their work with the community. And so we've been able to have about 50% of the students' families attend, and that's big for a junior high because we've struggled with getting families onto our site here since it's usually 2 years. And so where we're headed, looking ahead next year, this 7th grade, we will pilot for all 7th graders. We want to develop metrics for success. We want to make sure that our kids are happy. They feel connected to the school. We want to make sure that our staff are happy. They feel like they're set up for success. We want to continue to develop those cross-curricular connections to make sure that the learning is relevant and they see the connectedness of it. And then we want to continue to incorporate community into our teams. And that's something that we'll be working on many different fronts. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you guys in our Q&A session.